everybody. This is Steve Blair again, and I brought in my friend Brian Scott again. And the reason is we were talking, and he had a pretty neat solution for trade shows and meetings. And given the fact that I work with so many nonprofits, one of the things that I'd been hearing during COVID was the fact that fundraising was challenged a little bit in my trade associations and in my nonprofits because a majority of their revenue that they get for the year comes from their annual meetings or from their trade shows. And I said, we got to get you on so that my clients can learn more about, what it is that you all do. So quickly, before I jump in and start asking questions, Brian, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. It's always great to chat with you about these types of things. So I own and run ClearTone Consulting. So I provide executive level IT or technology consulting services. I've got about 20 or 21 years in the exhibitions, associations, and exhibitions industry experience. I also serve on the board of the International Association of Exhibitions and Events. So I certainly know a fair amount about that space.
Good.
I also provide just fractional, CIO and CTO services.
Great. So when thinking about virtual trade shows or these big annual meetings where, a nonprofit or a not-for-profit or even a for-profit company may want to bring in a lot of their members or clients, what are some of the big challenges facing that kind of whole industry today, especially around, things like financial, having to go digital, things of that nature?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, no doubt, I'm not telling anyone that's been in that space for the last, that the last 18 months has not been crazy, and I really feel for the folks in those organizations. It's been tough. The rush because of course, all the events just stopped on a dime. The rush to digital was like a huge tsunami. And there was just a lot of chaos. There was a lot of providers that probably weren't ready for that much work to come to them. And there were some struggles there. The provider network there has blown up from around pre-COVID 10 to 15 providers to over 300 the last time I counted. So a lot of people jumping in, but that also doesn't mean that they all probably ought to be in there, right? There's a lot of kind of fly-by-nighters, but there's a lot of great technology there as well. So I'd say what we found is that one thing that's many of my customers and colleagues have found is that if it's truly a trade show where it's buyers and sellers and the main thing is really connecting those, that's really been problematic in the digital format. Exhibitors have really struggled to get the value, the connections, and the networking and the leads that they were used to in the face-to-face, right? So there's really not been a great solution for that specific aspect. On the other hand, where there have been really successful meetings is the education the education focused conferences, continuing education. Some of those can be really large, and those have really worked out great. In fact, the attendance has gone even more than what the face-to-face has been in some cases. Yeah.
Why do you think that's the case?
Travel costs were down. It was easier, they could kind of fit it into their schedule because they have on-demand content, not just like I have to be in this room between 5 and 8, but I can watch this stuff on my own time. And so all of that, I think, really drove participation there. And I've heard that financially those have worked out as well.
From a especially when we're talking about like annual meetings, and especially a lot of nonprofits have big annual meetings where they bring in a lot of their donors or a lot of their constituents and present their new ideas, what they're doing, and it's a big way to fundraise. Do you think potentially, given what's happening in the industry, and I just think about myself, I was walking through Tyson's Mall with my wife this weekend, and it was full of people, and I was like, So how do you think that's going to work moving forward? Do you think it possibly these virtual meetings could be displacing the face-to-face meetings in the future? What are the thoughts in the industry?
Yeah, and so the true answers to those have yet to really play out. It's going to take a couple of years to really see how those dynamics play out. But the term hybrid is thrown around a lot, and that's even being defined. And it depends on the industry and again, the type of meeting. But attendance has been pretty strong coming back. A lot of face-to-face meetings coming back. They all follow all of the meetings to really even to execute these face-to-face. They're all following, the nth degree of safety protocols. So many of them are vaccine required, mask required, distancing, and all of that. And they do a great job because they're very controlled environments. In large places, they do a great job with safety. And so I think I would like to encourage people to not be too concerned about that, because it's not like the mall, which is really an uncontrolled, space. They have a lot more control about those spaces. But back to your question, I think it's going to be a mixture of this virtual and face-to-face. They're going to find the strengths for face-to-face, try to keep costs down, try to make it as affordable and as convenient for the people, the constituents that want to work in that. But wherever you can add more value, add the connections, add education, add engagement, the other 365 or the 360 out of those 5 events, days a year, organizations are really aggressively looking for that, because it's about value to their members, right, and their constituents that are engaged in those marketplaces. And so I think what COVID has shown is that, hey, there can be value in the digital side, and there's value in something that doesn't happen just a week, but something that can be extended for months, if not year round. And so a lot of organizations are really looking in that area.
So looking specifically at the events industry, and I think back to my time when I used to work as a manufacturing sales rep in the furniture industry, and we would go to High Point, North Carolina twice a year. And most of my clients would travel down. We were there usually twice, for 2 to 3 weeks at a clip. And we'd take clients through and show them, all the new stuff that's coming out. You could sit on it and touch it and feel it and, do all of that. How is, technology changing within the events industry like that?
Yeah. Well, there is no replacement for the pick it up, touch it, and feel it aspect, right? There just isn't yet. I know there's some groups that are experimenting with virtual spaces, online to try to get around and see things. And of course, it's still a little early for things like augmented reality to really kind of like to come into place. But there are some groups that are trying to innovate in that area. It's still very expensive and not really widely accepted. So I think the industries where that kind of palpable engagement is needed and required, there's face-to-face is still going to thrive in that space, because you just can't replace it, right? I think what there are ancillary things though that do translate into digital that will start to move more digital. So maybe you go and you engage about the item itself, but then how you follow up, how you get more information, how you share that information with other people, maybe the connections to the company, those things can be more digital and remote, because we're all working remote, more. And so we're more comfortable with that. And so it'll continue to change and evolve in that space. And, when things like virtual reality and augmented reality and web technology continue to evolve, and they will, and they do, right? Of course, it's going to continue to change. So the way it is today is going to look different 1 and 2 years from now. Is going to be significantly different still.
That's awesome. And, it certainly will save your feet. Sorry, my dog. I'm not stopping this recording.
That's great.
My dog knows how to open the door and came right into my office.
That's awesome.
We'll keep that in. It'll just be something people can laugh at.
That's right.
I just remember it was exhausting doing those, and it would be neat if there'd be a way that kind of moving forward, like you mentioned, that you could do those kind of things when you have a trade show.
Yeah.
So given that, I mean, there's a lot happening. I could see that people could really use someone like you to help them out. What's the best way people can get in touch with you? We'll put some information down below, but
Sure.
if you'd like to tell people the best way to get in touch with you, that'd be great.
Sure. It's, my name, Brian Scott at ClearTone Consulting, or you can go to cleartoneconsulting.com and certainly reach out through there. But it is a very dynamic space, and there's a lot of new technology happening. And if for organizations that don't have the capacity or enough IT individuals, it's overloading, right? I mean, it's overwhelming. There's just a lot going on. And that's what I'm here for, is to help them out.
Great. And everybody, I don't present people lightly. The people that I'm bringing to you in this changing, the changing of the workplace series is something, are all people that I think are experts in their field that can bring value and not give you a hard time. They're all great people. So Brian, again, thank you. This is the second time we've chatted on two different topics.
Mhm.
But they were both important topics, and I felt like they really could use, their own space for us to dive into. So, thank you for your time on behalf of my clients and myself. I really appreciate you coming and giving us your thoughts on this important topic. So, thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate it.